Have you ever looked at classroom chaos or a meltdown at home and thought there has to be a better way? Well, today we're diving into something called conscious discipline. It's a social emotional learning program that's been getting a lot of buzz for basically turning traditional behavior management on its head. And this right here, this is the question at the very heart of it all. It asks us to stop and think, what if that kid acting out isn't trying to be defiant? What if they're actually communicating that they're struggling and need a new skill? That single shift in perspective, it's the foundation for this whole approach. So how does that actually work? Well, the first huge idea is to move discipline away from being about adult control and move it towards being about connection. It's less about trying to manage kids and a whole lot more about learning to manage ourselves. This slide nails the core principle of the program. You know that saying on airplanes, put on your own oxygen mask first? That's basically this. Before we can even begin to teach children how to handle their big feelings, we have to get a handle on our own. An adult who's reacting emotionally can't teach a child to be calm and rational. It just doesn't work. So, and this is crucial, conflict isn't seen as a disruption to learning. It is the learning opportunity. Every single time a child acts out, it's like a little red flag signaling that they're missing a social or an emotional skill. The adult's job then isn't to punish the behavior, but to use that exact moment to teach the skill that's missing. To do that, conscious discipline provides a framework it calls the brain state model. Think of it like a little diagnostic tool for adults to understand what's really driving a child's behavior by linking it to what's happening inside their brain. All right, let's break this down. A kid in the survival state is basically in fight, flight, or freeze mode. Their only question is, am I safe? And they absolutely cannot learn until they feel secure. Then you've got the emotional state. This is when a child is upset, maybe because things aren't going their way. Their question is, am I loved? And they need to feel connected before they can move on. Only when a child feels both safe and loved can they get to the executive state. That's the learning brain, the part that can problem solve and control impulses. Okay, so if the goal is for adults to keep their cool in order to help kids, how do they actually do it? Well, the program lays out a whole toolkit for adults called the 7 Skills of Discipline. And here they are. This is basically the core curriculum for the adults. Composure is about managing your own triggers. Encouragement is about building that sense of community. Assertiveness helps you set clear boundaries without being mean. Choices gives kids a sense of control. Empathy is all about connecting with how the child is feeling. Positive intent means you're looking for the best in people. And finally, consequences are framed as learning opportunities, not punishments. And really, this gets to the heart of the whole thing. By practicing these 7 skills, the idea is that adults can stop having that automatic, knee-jerk reaction, the yelling or the shaming, and instead choose a conscious response that actually teaches the child what to do differently next time. You're modeling the very self-control you want them to learn. Okay, so that's the theory. It sounds pretty good, right? But what does this stuff actually look like in a real classroom or home? Let's get into a few concrete examples. One of the most famous tools is the safe place. Now, let's be clear, this is not a timeout chair. It's a cozy corner a child can choose to go to when their emotions get too big. It's filled with things that help them calm down, teaching them from a young age that they have the power to regulate themselves. Another key practice is something they call I love you rituals. Think of these as tiny little deposits into a child's emotional bank account. They're quick, playful moments of connection, a special handshake, a little song, that build those feelings of safety and love. It literally helps produce oxytocin, the love hormone, making kids more resilient when things get tough. And then there's the job board. This gives every single kid a meaningful role in what they call the school family. Whether it's being the greeter at the door or the plant waterer, this isn't just about chores. It's about fostering a sense of purpose and community, showing kids that they are valuable and needed. So we have the theory and we have the practice. But here comes the million-dollar question. Does any of this actually work? Let's take a look at some of the data and, the real-world discussions about its impact. Okay, here's one really interesting data point. A 2022 report from a school district in Florida showed that schools that went all in on this program, they called them Anchor schools, had an out-of-school suspension rate of just 15%. Compare that to 28% for the other schools in the district. That is a pretty dramatic difference. So that's a great result for the students. But what about the adults? What about the teachers who have to put all this into practice? This stuff requires a huge amount of emotional energy and self-control from them.
So, does it actually help with teacher burnout? Does it make them feel more effective at their jobs?
Well, this is where things get a bit murkier. An academic study from 2019 looked at exactly that question, and the results are interesting. The researcher found no measurable difference, no statistical significance, in feelings of self efficacy or burnout between the teachers using conscious discipline and a control group.
And, beyond the academic world, you can find skepticism among some educators themselves. You go on forums like Reddit, and you'll find teachers saying things like this: that the program's neuroscience feels a bit oversimplified, or that the techniques just don't work for more severe behaviors. Some even say the community around it can feel a little culty.
So, after looking at the model, the tools, the data, and the critiques, what's the big takeaway here? It feels like it all comes circling right back to that very first principle we talked about. Ultimately, the entire program seems to live or die by this one idea. Its success doesn't really depend on a child's willingness to behave. It depends entirely on an adult's willingness to do the incredibly hard internal work of changing their own mindset and regulating their own emotions first.
And that brings us to this final question to really chew on. What is the true purpose of discipline anyway? Is it about controlling children, or is it about empowering them to control themselves? Conscious discipline plants its flag firmly on the side of empowerment, and whether you agree with all of its methods or not, it definitely forces all of us to think about what our answer to that question really is.